Right. Hi, Shubhankar.
Hi Shruti, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining us and congratulations on your admit.
Thank you.
Right. So, Shubhankar, please tell us about your profile.
So I have over 5 years of experience in the IT industry. I started my career in TCS as a business intelligence developer, where I used to develop dashboards for clients based in Australia. From there, I moved to a startup where my role expanded a bit more in business intelligence. I came into a client facing role. And there I transitioned into project management, where I served as a project manager for a product development for a year. After that, I switched to Quantify, which is a AIML and data science services company, where I've been working in the for a pharma industry giant as a senior business analyst, where my responsibilities are it's divided from being formalizing projects to managing the account, building new relationships, finding customers, maintaining the clients, and everything. So there are multiple things to my current role. So that's what my current role is, and I have spent over almost 2 years in Quantify as well in the pharma industry. And now I'm not a technical person, but I only look into the business side of things.
Thank you. So, please tell us about your decision to pursue an MBA. What were the criteria that you had in mind when you were selecting a program, and what were those important things that you factored in?
So, so I come from a tier two college like SRM. So there, one of the things you do realize once you are once you start looking for jobs and everything is that there's a certain division between the top tier schools and the normal schools. So there were many times where I've seen in applications where I'm a fit candidate for whatever role they're looking for. But as soon as, the last line comes and it says only IITians can apply. So that used to hurt a lot. So the first thing I had thought that wherever I go for my master's, I'm going to target a top school. I will not settle for anything less than that. Now, coming to why MBA. So MBA was something which I was attracted to from my engineering days itself. I always knew that, I would be a better person when it comes to being on the business side of things than technical side of things. See, engineering in this country is like, it's the learning course where you decide what you want to do in the future. So in college itself, I was pretty much involved in, management things where I used to manage a team for my college fest. I was a part of a racing team where I was managing the team, finances, accounts, everything non-technical was under me. So those things made me incline more towards a business role. After coming into IT industry as well, I realized that, being a technical coder is not something I want to be in the long run. I want to be more towards solving business problems, coming up with solutions, helping to add business value and things like that. So it was very obvious to me that I wanted to pursue an MBA. So my goal was to go for a top school for the MBA and, in the future, switch my role, move out of the IT industry and work more towards a larger role where I can create more impact and help, lead the organization. So that's why I decided to pursue an MBA.
Right. And what brings you to the 1 year programs in India? And basically, did you compare it with the MBA abroad, or what were the things that were important there?
So initially, I was open to both being in 1 year as well as 2 year program. So I got some acceptance in Canada as well, but decided not to pursue those because in the long term, I wanted to stay in the country. Even if I went to say US, Europe, Canada, anywhere, I wanted to come back to India because I don't know, it's more like it's not just professional as well as personal. Like on a personal front, family would be here. I would want to be near my family. And on a professional front, I just feel that India is the next biggest, economy that's going to be like 21st century belongs to India. So there was no point of staying in US or Canada when the real growth and impact could be created in this country. Now, coming to the 1 year program, now since I would continue in India, the thing was that staying like already having worked for 5 years, staying away from the job for a couple of years was a bit of a stretch. If I can get that degree in an year and start my career journey, it would be better than to spend 2 years because it would be 2 years where I would not be earning, having earned money to obviously I have to get back to the job because, parents are getting old, they'll retire and then I need to be responsible for them. So I needed to get back to working as soon as possible. I wanted to start the track also where being on the younger side of my age, I could at least start my career towards the direction I want to pursue. So that's my reasoning for 1 year MBA in India.
Right. So, when you look at the MBA application process, the first step is to write the GMAT or the GRE. So, is there any evaluation that you did, when you selected the GMAT or the GRE? Did you?
So for GRE, I had some early exposure. So in college, I had a lot of friends who were preparing for GRE. So one thing which it feels very stupid now, but back then I used to see was that, they had this small book where they would be memorizing words, and I was like, I can't do this. Like I'm not good at, rectifying things, so I won't be able to do GRE. So automatically I was more inclined towards GMAT. Now, coming to GMAT, I also thought that, the way the paper was structured, right? So, like quants and verbal, the verbal was more around, sentence correction, all that. So, I just felt more inclined that, yes, I will be able to do this because it was more about applying your knowledge and grammar. Then it was about, rectifying rules and then just going there and doing stuff. So, that's why GMAT was my preference. Now, coming to the maths part, so yeah, that I would say engineers have an advantage there because a lot of my fourth year, whatever we studied for placements for to clear the aptitude round, was similar to what is being asked in quants. And compared to CAT and all, the level is a bit easier also. So that's also a plus point for GMAT. I would say I struggled a bit with algebra and all because it was quite some time since I had done algebra. But overall, yeah, the maths part was easy. For verbal, I think I just struggled in sentence correction because, yeah, that was a very different concept for me. Initially, all the options used to look the same to me, and I had to, study the rules to understand what comes where and how. It was a relook into the English language that I had been learning since my childhood. And as far as critical reasoning and reading comprehension is concerned, so I used to read a lot. So reading comprehension was very easy. And critical reasoning, I just feel it came very naturally to me. So that's why GMAT was the perfect choice for me.
Nice. So, when you look at, the preparation for GMAT as a working professional, how did you balance the preparation and what were the resources or any key tips and strategies for GMAT preparation?
So I think the first thing about GMAT is that you need to know what your strengths and weaknesses are. So for me, I always knew that sentence correction would be my struggle. So initially, I put in a lot of focus there. There's no point of taking mocks, and many people have this habit where they'll just go randomly and give GMAT first to see where they are, because I just feel that makes no point. You should be able, it's good to know where you are, but it's more important that you focus on what you're targeting. So I would say first we should identify, we have the syllabus and everything, you have the official guide, you take a look at it, see the topics, and identify what you're weak at, what you're strong at, and then start focusing more on the weak part. The most important thing, even when you're working, is that you need to find time every day to study for your GMAT, because spending 1 hour every day is better than just spending 6 to 8 hours on the weekend. On the weekends, put in 3 to 4 hours. I agree, you should put more effort over the weekend, but on the weekdays, you need to put in some effort because you need to be consistent. Otherwise, it's not going to work for you. So I think that's the biggest tip I'll give any working professional: identify your weaknesses and study every day instead of thinking that you'll just study over the weekend.
And what about the MBA application process? So, how do you break it down and how did you approach the essays?
So I think the first step about any MBA application is to look into your past, starting all the way from college, like what were the extracurricular activities, what all is your strength. So as I was saying, so for colleges, like first thing you need to look into your college life, say your bachelor's, whatever you have done, and see what extracurricular activities are there, which you can, because see, the college will just ask for confirmation that you're a graduate. They won't look into the subjects you've studied. But the extracurricular is something you can talk about. Maybe you led a team. So such things reflect, that you are more inclined to a leadership role or a management role from the very start. Secondly, you need to look into your professional journey, whatever you have become till today. Maybe it would be 3 years, 5 years as is. Like what are the highlights of your career that you want to showcase to the admissions committee or whoever is going through your application. So I think the first step is to shortlist these things to see what is adding value, where you might be showing some weakness, what else you can do to add value. Maybe you can join an NGO, do some extracurricular activity, maybe get into sports, anything which you feel would make you stand out. Then the second part of any application is what you want to be. So why MBA is the first thing you should figure out, because a lot of people, because we have been hearing from a childhood, right? Engineering plus MBA is the best combination. But that works when you're going, for like MIMs or going to the CAT channel. But that answer does not work when you're going through the GMAT channel, where people you're competing with would be coming with 10 years, 15 years of experience, where they would be more justified to the seat you're being fighting for. So first you need to know why you want to do an MBA, and it should not be a faff answer that, because everyone is doing, or because that's what I always wanted to do. No, like how would the MBA add value to your professional journey? How as a person it will help you grow? So first you need to identify your short term, long term goals, how MBA is adding value to it, what all is there in an MBA. After that, for every school you're targeting, you should know why you're targeting that school, because there are a lot of schools. How do I say that? There are hundreds and thousands of schools all across the world. So every school you need to give a reason why you're targeting that school. It should not be a very generic one that, hey, you're a good MBA, that's why I'm joining you. No, it should be very particular to that school. If you're targeting ISB for 1 year, you should be able to highlight that ISB is a target because it's a 1 year program. If you're going for IIM, you talk about the specialties they're offering. So it needs to be a mix of reason, and every application needs to be unique in its own way. There's no point of targeting 100 colleges. Nobody can practically do it. It's better to target a few, but be thoroughly researched about, what's the specialty of the college, why that college should have you.
Right. So in this process, are there any myths or any thoughts that have changed over this period of working on your MBA application that you now think about differently?
I think one thing is that we all, like, I used to go through the curriculums, but after going through all these, different colleges, one way or the other, the curriculum feels very similar. You cannot make a college stand out on its curriculum. Maybe you can talk about they're able to place the students in specialized sector. If you're targeting a very niche sector and that college has placements there, that's something you can talk about. But you cannot say that, hey, your strategy electives are very good, because every top college would have a good set of electives. It's a very illogical thing to say to a person who's from that college that, hey, your electives are very good. So I would say that's one myth which I think I have previously used also, that, hey, like, I also use this electives answer for, like, in the essays and all when I was applying. So I think that's one thing we should definitely avoid, rather focus on, post MBA, because even the colleges, they are more focused on what you will become after you after you become the alumni, than what you would be in the 1 year you will be studying there. So always focus on that.
You've interviewed with almost all the top schools in
Yeah.
India, and your interview experience at IIM Calcutta was very interesting, and
Yeah.
that is where you are headed. So that is something in itself breaking a lot of myths. So tell us about the interview preparation and the experience.
So coming to the preparation, I primarily I knew my application inside out. I remembered everything I'd written in my essay, because I did not want to be in a situation where I said something that deviated from the application I had written. So first thing I did was to have my application, remembering it, all the pointers, all the important things. Second, I also focused on adding 2-3 layers to each of the, normal, like, answers which define me, like what have I done in my professional journey. So if I've highlighted something, I should be able to answer at least 2-3 questions on that particular point which I've highlighted. So that was the second part of the preparation, where to, like, picking up, like, why MBA, why that college, why IT career, why engineering, such questions, having a 2-3 layers of answer, because an interviewer will just not ask you why MBA, you'll give you answer, he'll move to the next question. No, he will ask you 2 to 3 more questions about it. He'll dig deeper to better understand you. So you need to be prepared for that. Then also post MBA was another focus. There, you do not have a very deep level of preparation, because MBA is a transformational journey. What you are today, how you're thinking it in the college, that thinking might change. So it is better to have a clear understanding of your goals, but you should be flexible in showing that if in the MBA journey I learn something different and I decide to proceed in that direction, I would be open to it. So these were the type of preparations I did. I also prepared a bit around, like if I'm saying that I want to focus on business strategy, then have to have a basic understanding of, definitions, maybe the different examples, or, having some idea about business strategies and how they work. So I did some certifications from online certifications for it to get a better understanding. So these are the type of preparations I did. Then coming to like, so if I talk about ISB, IIM Ahmedabad and Bangalore, my interviews are more focused on my application, like my journey till now. IMA had the extempore where the topic was quite interesting, which was around management consultants and do they really add value, or they're just, overpaid people, that it's better to pay somebody senior. So that was my topic. And then there were a lot of, questions on what I'm doing right now. And they also asked me to apply what I'm doing. So I work in pharma, but the questions they asked me was around HR. So they wanted to know AI applications for HR. And the most obvious one, the professor themselves said that don't give us the most obvious one because we know this is the most obvious answer. So at that moment, I had to think on my toes at what can be an innovative answer for it. Coming to Bangalore and ISB, so Bangalore was like, they asked me about my entire journey. So I still remember very well, there were three professors sitting. The first professor asked me about my first job. The second professor asked me about, like general knowledge type of stuff. The most difficult question they asked me was, dollar is the global currency right now. Do you think we should stay with this system or should we go away with this system? And it was something I was not at all prepared for, to be honest, because it's like, if I had studied economics, maybe I would have been able to answer it, but I was not able to. The third person, who was an alumni of IIM Bangalore, he asked me about my current job. He gave, he asked me applications, how I'm adding value and things like that. So overall, and pretty much ISB was also like that. They talked about my professional journey and like why MBA, why did not I go for the CAT approach and things like that. So these three colleges were pretty much how a typical interview goes like. Coming to Calcutta, so Calcutta was something, it was my first interview, and honestly, I did not expect it to go the way it went. Uh, so I was the last person to be interviewed that day, and from the very start, right, it felt like a bouncer to me, like how they say in cricket, right? You just duck because you don't know what to do on such scenarios. So they started, as soon as I entered, the first thing they asked me is that, do you think it is an advantage or disadvantage to be the last person to be interviewed in the day? Then, so I gave a very diplomatic answer. I weighed in the pros and cons because I don't want to, give them that bias that I think either it's an advantage or disadvantage. And after that, like the questions, they were very, I would say, they just wanted to see how well I know about my current affairs. And they wanted me to, it's sort of, I would say they wanted to put me in a pressure, or they just wanted to see that will I be able to, fake it till I make it? I don't know what they were looking for me in me exactly, but they asked me questions from everything. Like they asked me maths. So in engineering, we studied calculus. There was something called L'Hopital theorem. That is something I did not understand properly in college. And like the first question the professor asked me was, can you give me an example of L'Hopital theorem? And I just went blank. And I was honest in the interview that I don't remember it. Then they brought it down to probability. So yeah, I was able to solve that. So that was a good thing. Then they went into geography. They asked me about rivers and like dams and everything. And as soon as they got the gist that, oh, he's able to answer, they would totally jump into a new topic just to see that whether I'll be able to answer that or not. They asked me to name 5 English newspapers, which was the easy question. Then they asked me to name the headquarters of those newspapers. Again, like I think I just got 2 out of the 5 correct. Uh, so overall, IIM Calcutta, they did not look into my application that much. They were just testing me as a person, I believe. They were not interested in what I'd written, like why I'm applying there or anything. They just wanted to see whether I'm a good fit for the IIM Calcutta culture and like, will I be a good MBA student and post MBA alumni or not. So I think that's why Calcutta was the most unique experience I've ever had. And honestly, I don't know if I want to experience that again or not. So yeah, and they were very much, I would say, on current affairs. They asked me about privatization of banks. They asked me, do I know what's happening in Sri Lanka? So the economic crisis, which is still going on, was happening. And I said, yeah, I have an idea about it. And they said, okay, then we won't ask you questions on that. Tell us what's happening in Argentina. Now, Sri Lanka was something I'd prepared for, but Argentina, even I had a very, very vague idea of what's happening there. So and then they asked me about Agniveer. They asked what are the pros and cons. And so, like, honestly, I was not expecting such questions. So it was a lot about, just having a general sense of the current affairs and being able to think on the toes. So that's how I got into Calcutta, I believe.
Very interesting. So, if you look back at your journey, what would be some tips and strategies that you would suggest the people who are just starting off and they'll be applying for the programs the next cycles?
So, somebody, I believe, who has already gotten the score, right, and they're focusing on the application part, I would say, first, yeah, introspect before going ahead. If you need 6 months to introspect, rather introspect, see, identify what's weak in your profile and try to, mold yourself towards that. Uh, how do I say that? In that direction, which would actually make that give you some strength as an applicant. See, even when I decided to switch into a project management role from a technical role, my goal was because I knew I wanted to do an MBA. As a technical person, there's not much I can show in my profile because in the end of the day, they're going to see me as a coder. So that's why I went to a project management role where I could showcase that, hey, I can do stuff, not just technical, as well as manage people who are working on technical front, manage clients and, showcase my profile. Again, I switched into a business analytics role because that was the closest role I could get to where I would be involved in a business role and not in a technical role. So I think the first thing is to, focus on introspect and see where you can further improve. If you have not done any extracurricular activities throughout your career, I would highly recommend do so. Build hobbies and hobbies about which you could talk. Like I mentioned reading, gaming, and F1. And these are like three things I could talk about very well. In reading, if you just know, like whatever you have read, you need not remember everything. Just have one good two books which you know very well, which you can summarize in the interview, and maybe have like 3, 5, 6 authors' name in your mind. That's all. For F1, you need to just know like what is F1. You should be able to explain it to the panel. So if you don't have any extracurricular activities, get into some, join an NGO, maybe volunteer, or just start your own YouTube channel. If you're a guitarist, maybe you can do that. So focus on these things because we are always to focus on the, professional side of our things, but we also need to have a look at our personal things. Once that is done, I would say start focusing on how you want to sell yourself to the panel, why you want to do an MBA, what are your short term, long term goals. Because remember, the panel wants to see that after your MBA, will you be a distinguished alumni for them? Whether they'll be able to print you on a poster and put it on the campus that, hey, look, our alumni has become this person, like how they do it for Satya Nadella or Sundar Pichai, right? They look for people like that. So that's also one thing you need to be confident about what you want to be, and you need to be prepared about whatever question they might ask you for the same.
One last question. That would be to just introspect and understand what are the important things that one should look at when they are choosing an MBA admission consultant.
So I think like for an MBA consultant, right, first thing is that there needs to be a personalized approach because there is no general approach to like there's no one consultant can consult 10 people, but if they give a 10 generic consultations, no, those 10 people would not make it to a college. The journey is a very personalized one. It needs to be a one-on-one relationship where the person is equally invested and, understands your personal stories and sees how that can be spun into an application. How can that be shown as your strength? If so, that's the first thing you should look for is that the consultant needs to be a one-on-one person. There's so many brands who coach you for GMAT and offer you admission services. These people will, they'll just say, okay, what do you want in an application? You say, hey, I have done this, I've done that. They'll be like, okay, here's your essay. You can put this right. Here's your application. Please go ahead. That's not the way to go ahead with it. You need to have a lot of discussions. You need to introspect, talk about what you have introspected, see how that can be highlighted. That one-to-one touch is the most important thing you need to look for in an MBA consultant, I believe.